So we start with thanking Dhruba Ghosh to come here to accept our invitation.
It's an honor for me.
We are hoping that this kind of monthly meetings will essentially help our students to get acquainted with certain areas which are not actually governed by training of sitar. Because we try while training sitar, I also teach sarangi, I also teach violin. So we do feel that an exposure to instruments other areas, other gharanas other than ours, some additional information would be of great value and great help. So initially we started, the whole concept was that our senior students, as I said a little while ago, get opportunities because we sponsor their concerts all over India. There are 12 of them. But the balance, who are about 40, they are semi-senior and some of them are juniors. So we felt that they should also get an exposure. So when people like the students as well as some other friends like Ramnathji is here, Dhanashi Pandit is here, Sandeep Bhattacharya, they are all musicians and music lovers and great pillars to publish books. So we felt that if they expose themselves to this kind of an audience, they will get concert experience, more confidence. As my ustad used to say, one public concert is equal to 1 month's practice. So it's something. So the whole concept was started. We started, the first session was Thumris. The second section was related to the role of alankars in music. Third was what to play, how to play. Then we had Fazal Bhai last month to talk about the role of tabla player as an accompanist and as a solo player. And today we have Dhruba Ghosh to talk about Sarangi. So Dhruba, before we start to the questions which have been listed, and I think all of you have got a copy of this. And here is a booklet which was published as a report. As a report of the seminar which was held in 1994. And as you will see on page 2, we had some very prominent sarangi players, like Abdul Latif Khan Sahab from Bhopal was there, and Dhruva of course was there. Then we had Mashkur Bhai was there also. Yeah, and then we had Munir Khan, the famous sarangi player. Then Ramnarayan ji was there, Sabri Khan was there, Sultan Khan was there. So all prominent and various great, even Kishori ji, Kishori Amunkar. Of course she couldn't make it, so she sent a half an hour video, and which we had Komal Kothari. So we felt that as a follow-up of this seminar and the various issues which were raised in this seminar, I would like only to add here before asking questions to Dhruva, that this whole seminar report laments, so to say, the disappearance of Sarangi gradually from the scene. And to quote Yub, he said that there were tens of thousands of Sarangi players before. I don't know, this is an exaggeration, but there must be many Sarangi players in the olden days. And some few Sarangi players who are listed here are there, they are all great masters, but the fact does remain that the popularity of Sarangi gradually is being taken over by harmonium as an accompanist. And that was a worrisome issue, and therefore a lot of discussions were there, and I would urge you very strongly to read what Shobha Gurtuji had said. It was quite interesting, because he said something about sarangi player मिलते नहीं है. नहीं ऐसे तो मिलते हैं, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है, आप नाराज नहीं होइगा. In a simplistic way she explained. But today I think we have reached some initial stage where seems to be a little light at the end of the tunnel. And Dhruba Ghosh has taken a lot of interest, a lot of contribution he has made. So, firstly, Dhruva, may I request you to let us know, you are the son of a very great tabla maestro, who of course was also adept at other forms of music. Trundayan, he taught sitar and vocal music, काफ़ी बंदिशें आप लोगों को निखिल बाबू ने सिखाई, etc. And therefore, could you tell the people here and our audience and some other dignitaries as to how you started, how instead of going and playing tabla or being vocalist, how did you dabble into this instrument?
Actually, since I was aiming to be a vocalist, and around the time of 12 or 13 when the voice changes, so I was told by my father to stop practice for a period of 1.5 to 2 years till the voice resettles in the adult mode. And that was the time when, since childhood I liked the sound of Sarangi. I learned little sarod also from Rajiv Taranath, and violin from one of the persons. So that time when the voice was not to be practiced, so Babuji said that there used to be at the radio Dattaram Parvatkarji, whose son is also studying. Dattaram Parvatkar was in the radio, तो उनसे उन्होंने बुलाया था, and I had the first few lessons in Sarangi from him, and so that I started practicing for about 1 or 2 years. It went on. Initially, of course, there are two ways of playing. That brings me to that point. One is at the edge of the cuticle and the nail. The other is purely on the skin. So since it was the first few days, it was a lot of rioting and bloodshed happened there. So it is a standard thing that happens. But after Sagiruddin Khan Sahab came, a few months later, he had come for a Radio Sangeet Sammelan. He was playing a solo, and father was accompanying Girija Devi ji at the same Radio Sammelan. I am talking of 1971. So that time he asked Sagiruddin Khan Sahab to come home and show me some parts of the Delhi Gharana of Sarangi, Bundu Khan Sahab's, because he was a direct disciple of Bundu Khan Sahab. So Sagiruddin Khan Sahab came and he changed the finger scheme a little bit and told me to move to the cuticles, edge of the cuticle and the nail. This would give much more clarity of change of notes, as well as it would give fluidity of movement, which the callus which it forms on the skin creates kind of a resistance to very fluid movement, which is practiced in a one branch of Sarangi players play that way. But he said this will give you a lot of freedom to play in the Bundu Khan Sahab style of expression. So that was when it went on, and he gave me 6 or 10 codes of Bundu Khan Sahab, some technique codes and codes to think about. Bundu Khan Sahab used to work on Merukhand also. So some of the things Sagiruddin Khan Sahab gave me, and I was working on them, and that led to a lot of new dimension to my own mind. And then later on, as the voice resettled back into the adult mode, I preferred to continue with the Sarangi, because by the time the attraction had got me. And I must also say that my father himself in his younger days was practicing both vocal and tabla, and he had aimed at becoming a vocalist primarily. When he was learning from Dhruba Ghosh ji in Calcutta, and then he had come to Bombay later on to learn from Ustad Amir Hussain Khan Sahab, and then later from Ustad Ahmad Jan Thirappa Khan Sahab. So in the early days, he had spoken to Gyan Babu that what should I do? I am practicing both for equal number of hours, and it was 16 hours a day, something, 8 this and 8 that. So Gyan Babu told him very frankly, he said, if you really want to do something seriously for the subject and for the coming generations, then you take up tabla, because that subject has been very much kept to the gharanas, to the father-son lineage. Much of the repertory is not disclosed outside. So you have to get in to that role and bring the tabla out to in the open, all the huge treasures, and ultimately you will have to learn from Ustad Amir Hussain Khan Sahab and Ahmad Jan Dhruba Khan Sahab. Dhruba Khan Sahab was known never to teach anyone, and he had a huge repertory. So that was the ambition, and he inspired my father to give up vocal music, which otherwise he would have been. He was already broadcasting by then from Calcutta radio. He moved to tabla. So that was also an inspiration for me. Father said that I would support you if you take the sarangi. It will come out from the family lineage to the open domain, and the younger generation, the future generations will get inspiration that it is not only reserved for certain families, it is for everyone. So that was the inspiration. So he said, you will have a lot of struggle, your career won't start, another 15 years you'll have to sit just like that and working. By the time 5 years already, somebody else in your place in 5 years with that kind of work that you do, riyaz, you would already be on the stage, but you will have another 10 years to put. So be prepared for a life of challenges. And I loved the idea, so I took it up, and that's how, then of course things began unfolding. Yes.
But tell me that going back, let's say a few decades, when before these great masters, Abdul Latif Khan Sahab, Sabir Khan वगैरह, Ghulam Sabir Khan, even a little later Sultan Bhai, earlier there were other bowing instruments also,
Right.
like Sarinda, Taus,
Isra,
and Israd, etc. Now, how, as compared to all these, Sarangi dominated the scene? Was there any particular reason?
There are a couple of reasons. One is that the taus is like a large dilruba, it's a thin gauge metal string. So also the dilruba, so also the israj, and the bowing naturally because of thin gauge steel strings, the bowing is very light and gentle. But that instrument does not yield a lot of volume. The sarangi yields a lot of sound throw, and especially the sarangi was played in the kothas in those days, apart from programs of course, but the kothas had needed volume. Now look at the very interesting point. Kothe mein gana bajana chal raha hai, there are passers by going, they should know that a kotha is there. So the songstress is singing at a high pitch, it's going up. Tabla is also at a higher pitch. So sarangi cannot be heard if you are playing a israj or dilruba. It will be very relegated. So therefore the sarangi was used to also promote the voice of the songstress. So wherever she was taking a breather, the sarangi would fill in. So it would, a kind of continuum was created. This was one. Two is that if you see the folk sarangi relatives, like the Ravan hattas, just a coconut shell and a stick, and the string is made of horsehair, not gut strings. So that again yields, because there is a concentration of sound in the coconut shell. Then you see the Gujaratan sarangi or the Dhari sarangi, the folk sarangis. They also have very small bellies, but very intense sound, because they have to play with the dance group. So, and the villagers crowding. So the sound has to go out. So that's why the folk sarangi and the classical sarangi aimed at a larger sound, also because of for which the gut string had to be used. It yielded much more energy. The other point was dilruba was invented it's a speculative thought, that since sarangi was to be played only by the esoteric groups, the families, lineages, and in the kothas and socially outside the zone of Bhadralok. So what does the Bhadralok do? The Bhadra Mahila, what does she do? So for her own personal musical satisfaction, in Maharashtra especially, ladies used to play dilruba. And because of the parda, it was easy to play the swaras, note position, whether it's sarangi.
Sorry, I played dilruba for 3 years.
Oh yes. That was when it was Bombay State. I think.
Please go ahead.
So even among Parsis, the Dilruba, there were players who were playing Dilruba. So these instruments, ये जो है तार पतले तार वाले जितने इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स हैं, वो एक पर्सनल इंस्ट्रूमेंट होके रह गया. अब जब इसको बजाना था इंडस्ट्री में, फिल्म इंडस्ट्री में, तब वो तार शनाई हुआ, हॉर्न लगा दिया उन्होंने. ये दक्षिणामोहन टैगोर ने किया उसको, ताकि the sound gets enlarged, and in place of sarangi, the tar shanai comes in. So that gave these thin gauge instruments a lift. But otherwise, that was the main thing, that the kind of broadcast. Also in radio broadcast, if you have seen the old photos of the All India Radio, you will see Ustad Mushtaq Hussain Khan Sahab or Fayaz Khan Sahab singing, and only one mic is there, a two-sided mic. And the tabla player and the sarangi player had to be seated there. One mic had to capture the vocalist, the singers behind him, the accompanists. So the sarangi and tabla had to play louder. So therefore, these the reasons why the sarangi acquired.
Would you not agree, Dhruv, that apart from the sound quality, which required, as you said, circumstances required louder sound, I think, I mean, this may be again, as I said, I'm talking out of turn, but I do feel that sarangi was a much more versatile instrument.
True.
As compared to taus. I have played taus also for a while.
Exactly.
Yes, I played dilruba for quite some time, in fact. So what I felt was that the versatility, even later on tar shehnai, etc. were also invented. That's a very loud sound, as tar shehnai had. But that all went into the background because the sarangi is such a versatile instrument. There is something very haunting, about sarangi sound and the number of tarafs and all that.
It's a combination of the gut string, then the parchment and the belly being bigger than the other board instruments.
अब जब आप सा लगाते हैं आंखें बंद हो जाए. That's what sarangi has got, that some
Pull.
haunting quality, as I may say. Would you not say that that was also one of the major reasons?
That is the main point. The intensity of sound, the emotional intensity is very strong.
Achha, I'm glad you added the emotional word.
But apart from that, there are so many other variations possible, expression on the sarangi, which on a long string instrument you cannot do as much as on a shorter string. The movement of hand and crossing octaves becomes much easier, and there are so many more. It's within a limited range, whereas the dilruba would occupy, one saptak would occupy this much. तो तान बजाना है तो पूरा बॉडी बिल्डिंग करके आना पड़ेगा. सारंगी में इतने जगह में पूरा आपको करना होता है, तो उसमें तान के प्रकार और बहुत सारे किस्म के एक्सप्रेशंस सारंगी में हो सकता है, जो कि लंबे इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स में होना मुश्किल है. तो इसीलिए
Then next question was, barring the last decade, sarangi seems to have declined in its importance, especially for accompaniment taken over by harmonium. Now, barring the last decade, because last decade some young sarangi players have come out, but barring that period, earlier, and as you will see in this booklet, the major theme has been how harmonium has taken over as an accompaniment. Now, there are pluses and there are minuses. How would you, what shall I say, describe as to why it happened and why it should not have happened?
This is question number 2, which I have partly answered in question number 8 later on. But in 2, for saying now, it is broadly speaking, the harmonium played the role of soft pedaling the role of accompanist. The super rich personality of the sarangi required a super rich approach to accompaniment, as contrasted to a sword dueling approach. So the vocalist needed a support from the sarangi player, and the sarangi players themselves were very learned. उनको कहते थे 1¼ times the vocalist. इतने गवैयों के साथ बजाया उन्होंने कि so much बंदिशें उनको याद हो गए, तो कभी कभी गवैया को अंतरा याद दिला देते थे sarangi player. So he was much more qualified because he had played with so many and he studied also. But what happens on the stage? You are an accompanist. Your profile is limited to that. So that was a situation which led to a. While initially in the alap portions the sarangi sounds very good, it creates silken halo around the voice. But as the movement, as the pace increases of the vocalist, of his thoughts, expressions, the sarangi player also his pace increases because he has to keep in pace with the singer. But that's where the discretion is called for. How much should I accompany everything, or should I leave out some things, play a fewer things? Because otherwise, if I'm playing everything, then I am disturbing his flow of thought. One. Two is that the sarangi player, because he's from the lower strata in the hierarchy, he feels that if I don't, हर एक बात का हमने जवाब नहीं दिया तो लोग क्या कहेंगे. So हर एक हरकत लिया गवैया ने तो सारंगी प्लेयर ने उसको लगा दिया, या तो ताने कह दिए तो हर तान के बाद उसने, जब तक वो दूसरे तान निकल गए ये पहले तान का जवाब दे रहे नेचुरली, बिकॉज देयर इज अ टाइम लैग, यू नो, उसका लैपिंग जो कहते हैं वो हो रहा है. ही इज ऑन दिस फर्स्ट तान वाइल द सिंगर हैज टेकन द नेक्स्ट तान. सो हिज थॉट, द सिंगर्स थॉट प्रोसेस is still being overshadowed by the sarangi players reply to the first तान. So ऐसे ऐसे होते 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 क्या होते, then it led to a kind of a more or less a kind of a dueling. हम ये तान गा रहे तुम बजा के बताओ, सारंगी प्ले करते हम ऐसे तान तुम गा के दिखाओ. This used to take place. So it led more to a उस्ताद का दंगल than a vocal centered performance where the accompanist was giving a supportive hand. Now, among the sarangi players, there were very intelligent players, but few who chose to take that secondary role and accompany. Like you have Abdul Majid Khan Sahab accompanying Kesar Bhai in all the 78 RPMs. You know, he just given such a beautiful resonance to Kesar Bhai's singing. Then Kesar Bhai is going into those very pechide taan of Jaipur style. वहाँ पे सुनिएगा अब्दुल मजीद खान साहब कैसे जवाब दे रहे, बहुत सिंपल करके सॉफ्टली एकदम मेलो करके उस तान को बजा रहे. सो केसर भाई फील्स वेरी कंफर्टेबल, एक कुशन जैसा उनको मिलता था. तो आई वुड, if I may jump to point number 8, which is the tenets of accompaniment.
Go slowly, don't jump.
Because this brings us to the reason why the harmonium took over was it is not only technical but also sociological angle as well. Coming to the tenets of Sarangi accompaniment, I am going to point number 8, which says, in your presentation in Sarangi seminars 1994, you had described the appropriate role of Sarangi accompanist. You had made some suggestions. Can you please elaborate? Page 57 of the report. So here, the tenets are, there are about 12 tenets. One is, Sarangi player has to be extremely surila, because there are so many taraf के तार होते हैं. थोड़ा भी बेसुरा हुआ और अगर तरफ के तार में एक अगर तार सुर में नहीं है तो वो ज़्यादा चिल्लाने लगता है. तो जो काइंड ऑफ क्रिएट्स ए वेरी ईरी फीलिंग, अजीब सा एक फीलिंग आता है. अब बहुत सुर में ना हो तो एक्सट्रीम सुरीला प्लेइंग इज द वन. देन
Can I disturb you for a minute? Going to the first point which you said, because we are going to another area. I thought what I was told, you made one statement that Sarangi players assist sometimes the vocalist by, if he does not remember the antra, he helps. I had discussed the talim issue of Sarangi players with several very prominent Sarangi players. And one of them, who is very prominent, बोले अरविंद भाई हमारी जो तालीम है by accompanying. So we learned during the accompaniment rather than the other way around. He even went to the length of saying, जब गाने बजाने वाले बैठे हैं तो यमन बजाने डर लगता है, because they feel that the people who are listening are experts, and the talim that they have had is only from accompanying. And that is not, as you would agree, that is not the
Not adequate.
detailed meticulous talim which the guru would give.
जी.
One Sarangi player said that we are accused of overbearing accompaniment. He says, Arvind bhai क्या करे? Nobody is calling us a solo. एक चांस मिलता है तो जरा तो दिखाने का शौक होता है हमको कि भाई हम भी है कुछ. So that's where that अब जो कंपटीशन कह रहे हैं ना, अभी वो पंचम में गया तो सुर पे चला गया, अभी आलाप करे तो 2-4 तान लगा दिया. So that I think was a very major reason for vocalists. And then of course there's availability, because gradually Sarangi players were going away, competent Sarangi players, so they were not easily available. And those who were available, because of the supply demand situation, asked a lot of money. Not you, but a lot of money they were asking for accompaniment. And relative to that, harmonium players had perhaps 1/4 the fee.
Exactly.
And therefore it was easy to get harmonium players.
Now, there are two angles from
please.
what you say. One is that the traditional sharing of the income, the vocalist, suppose it was a common expression. गवैया को 1 रुपया मिला तो तबलिया को 4 आना और सारंगी प्लेयर को 2 आना. That was the kind of ratio. So he was always down the line in terms of his income. Now in terms of the traditional सारंगी players, जो घरानेदार सारंगी प्लेयर थे, वो गाना बाकायदा सीखते थे, गवैये होते थे और सारंगी बजाते थे और बीन भी बजाते थे. और इसका एग्जाम्पल है फयाज अहमद खान साहब, किराने घराने के. वो जैसे उनका गाने का तालीम, वैसे सारंगी का तालीम भी हुआ. तो उनके फादर तो सारंगी प्लेयर थे, बट ही वॉज इक्वली अडेप्ट at both the subjects. And in that generation, the elder generation of Sarangi players, they had learnt vocal music exclusively under ustads, and then only they would qualify to sit with an ustad. पहले गाने का शागिर्दी करो हमसे, फिर बाद में मेरे साथ संगत करो. ऐसा this used to be the thing. I remember when I was very young, of course, I just started Sarangi and I had gone with my father to Baroda, and there was a Baroda University का exams थे. सो फयाज अहमद खान साहब भी थे, नियाज अहमद खान साहब भी थे, फादर थे. तो इन आवर जो गेस्ट हाउस में रुके हैं, तो वहाँ पे मैं रियाज़ कर रहा था. तो फयाज अहमद खान साहब आ गए अंदर. तो बोले कि लाओ सारंगी लाओ जरा. तो मैंने सारंगी दिया उनको, तो मिलाए उन्होंने. फिर कोमल रिखब से उन्होंने बाकायदा पूरा राग बजाया. हमारा खुला तार सा होता है, उन्होंने कोमल रे को सा बना के वैसे ऑन द स्पॉट सीधा, यानी रियाज पहले का रियाज किया हुआ था. हर तो रियाज नहीं करते, वैसे वहाँ से कोमल रिखब से बड़े मज़े से आराम से उन्होंने बजाया. कहते कि आमिर खान साहब भी सारंगी, तो पहले सारंगी ही थे, तो वो भी सारंगी का अप टू सीनियर एज ही कुड प्ले वेरी फ्लुएंटली द सारंगी. बहुत सालों का रियाज था. तो इन लोगों ने जैसे गाने का रागों का रागदारी का सीखा था, तो वो बाद के जनरेशन में जो ज़्यादातर टाइम बजाने लगे, दैट मीन्स टाइम मीन्स कोठा में बजाना, उसको टाइम कहते थे. तो फिर उनका सीखना थोड़ा सा कम हो गया था. लेकिन उनमें जो बुज़ुर्ग थे वो बाईजियों को सिखाते थे, क्योंकि उनके पास इतना विद्या थी. तो वो जिस प्रकार से मतलब गाने बजाने को निभाना, गाने को राग को निभाना, बंदिश को निभाना, ठुमरी को निभाना बहुत अच्छी तरह से जानते थे. बाद के जनरेशन, इट डज नॉट मीन दैट एवरीबडी इज द क्रीम. देयर इज आल्सो द अदर लेयर्स. एंड
it will be 8 o'clock by the time we finish.
द टॉप
So after everything is ready, huh?
the top players, they did feel the humiliation. They did feel the humiliation very bitterly in their profession as accompanists. But either they were absorbed by the radio, where the financial compensation kind of made them feel little comfortable. But otherwise, if you're not in the radio and a great ustad of the subject, and संगत में आपको फिर वही झेलना पड़ रहा है. So naturally their frustrations came up on stage, and backstage also there used to be lots of quarrels and all that. So this is the reason where the harmonium player, who is basically harmonium players are never hereditary players. Sarangi players are hereditary. So when you have a हारमोनियम प्लेयर जो कि हारमोनियम का फादर सन का लिंक नहीं है, तो ही अरे फादर सन वाले सारंगी प्लेयर है बहुत, he has bigger credentials than me as a harmonium player. So he feels smaller and he feels shyer. So he takes the role of a stenotypist. गवैया गा रहे, हम उसको फेथफुली बजाएंगे और जहाँ चाहिए हम सुर पकड़ के रखेंगे, जहाँ आपने बोला थोड़ा बजाए थोड़ा बजा के रखेंगे. तो they were much more preferred. And with, you will notice the old 78 RPMs records. वहाँ सारंगी की संगत भी होती थी और हारमोनियम का भी संगत होता था. फयाज खां साहब का, उस्ताद फयाज खां साहब के जो जितने भी हो, उसमें रसूल खां साहब का, गुलाम रसूल खां साहब का हारमोनियम भी होता था, सारंगी भी होती थी. तो दिस इज द पॉइंट दैट हारमोनियम वाज ऑलरेडी इन द मेन स्ट्रीम, सो टू से, विद द बाईजीज. हारमोनियम यूज्ड टू बी प्लेड वेरी मच and so the sarangi. But then harmonium became the exclusive choice and the sarangi became less and less. So this was an unfortunate situation, but it was like in society, so many shifts take place. This is one of the unfortunate shifts that happened. The Khasab whom he is referring to, his official name was Ghulam Sabir Khan, but he was known as Bade Sabri Khan also. He was from the Delhi radio. Now, very interestingly, he used to be a harmonium player. What a phenomenal genius. Then the rule came from Ministry of Information Broadcasting that harmonium is to be banned. And then he would be jobless the next day. So he took up the sarangi, and within a few weeks he was, I don't know what genius he had. He became the...
But do you know
story, I don't
another
know
thing which he demonstrated in my presence? He could play tabla with both the hands. He could play harmonium with both the hands. So I mean,
really,
he was such a unbelievable. And he was quite a jocular. Yeah. But he was a great sarangi player. There is no doubt about it.
He had great passion that after this radio duty, he would immediately wear a suit or something like that and watch English movies. He couldn't follow a word of English, but he must watch English movies.
So in my younger days, there was a Hamid Hussain, staff artist of Bombay Radio. He had a peculiar habit. He said, Arvind bhai, you are Gujarati? I said, yes, I am Gujarati. He said, no, you are Bengali. So I said, no, I am Gujarati. He said, no, you are Bengali. So I said, Khasa bhai, you calling me Bengali, but I am Gujarati and I am telling you that I am not a Bengali. He says, no, you look like a Bengali. But that man was so versatile. He invented an instrument called Hamidi. बहुत अच्छी बजाते थे. He was very versatile. So some of these sarangi players in my younger days which I have heard are though he has white hair, he has not heard them. No, the idea is basically that sarangi is a fantastic instrument. That's why we have kept this session to find out at the end how all of us can jointly make it more in demand, more popular, which is doing a lot of work in that area. But I think it requires a little more
Stronger.
yes, and a more wider support than today what we are getting. No doubt the younger, but there are problems with the younger people also, which we have listed out later on. तैयार है तो जरा बोलो ना, because any questions from the floor people wish to ask.
Rather than a battle between harmonium and sarangi, I've seen what vocalists like is having them both. Because harmonium helps in keeping their sur in place. The chords, you get chords.
Yeah.
Like sama, so that he gets the role of the stenotypist, which you said. And keeps the singer, that bass.
Yeah.
And the sarangi plays a more active.
More
so
active.
The ideal thing is when you have a program which has a good budget.
Yeah, then you can have both. Exactly.
And hopefully they don't fight on stage. And,
No, not only that, they both play and the vocalist is sitting doing nothing. One after the other, they are playing and the vocalist has no chance.
Correct.
This has happened in...
Sarangi is a second vocalist almost.
True.
Harmonium is keeping them centered with a nice sa and more playing nice and loud.
I'll tell you a very amusing incident. Vilayat Khan Sahab in Gandhar Mahavidyalaya in Delhi asked Imrat bhai to sit on one side and myself to sit on the other side. And he said, ye dono bhi thoda thoda bajayenge. And then I do not know what came into our heads. I played and he played and I played and he played. खान साहब ने बोला कि मैं अभी जाता हूँ तुम लोग बजाया करो हमने कहा खान साहब सॉरी तो जोश में आ जाते हैं कई कई दफ़ा. No, but I think there is, as I said, light at the end of the tunnel. So now I hope the tunnel is not too long.
We can walk after we have some chai. We can cross the
We can cross it.
we can cross the tunnel.
Outside, let us.